This morning's sermon and text is really one of my favorite, if not my favorite. When I first heard it 20 plus years ago, it was riveting, and it was in a seminary classroom. And at that point I said, this is a sermon I'm going to preach, cut and paste, every year of my ministry life. So you've heard it before, and you will hear it again. It's a powerful sermon. I encourage you to lean in. I encourage you, even though you've heard the prodigal son many times, don't check out. There's always something new in this story that Jesus tells. Jesus is in trouble. He's in big trouble with the religious leaders, primarily because there's a difference between what God is like. So what's your perception of God? Your perception of God will affect how you live, will affect how you interact, will affect whether you want to be religious or not, will affect how you want to follow Jesus or not. Because if God is an angry, mean-spirited, judgmental God looking for you to do something wrong and goes, stop it, that will affect your life, right? Or if God is this old man figure just barely able to see or talk and doesn't really make any difference in life. Or if God is a kind, loving, pursuing, wooing God. All these kinds of images of God people have, you have. And maybe they change in seasons. What is God like? Well, Jesus came on the scene and the religious leaders felt that God was holy, holy, holy. God was holy. And He was to be feared, and He was to be worshipped, and He was to be obeyed. They were big into obedience. Obedience is good. God is holy. God is other. God is our judge. But Jesus came along as this new teacher, and people were attracted to Him. But not just religious people. People that didn't go to church. People who went to bars. Women of ill repute. People who swore and cussed and made fun of church people. These people were attracted to Jesus, and the religious people were shocked. They were scandalized by this new kind of teaching. And so Jesus teaches three stories. I'm going to focus on the third. The first one, He tells about a shepherd and sheep, 100 sheep, but one gets lost. And the shepherd goes after the one that was lost, and he leaves behind the 99. Very reckless. And then He tells a story about a woman who has 10 coins, but she loses one, and she goes on an all-out search for the one coin. Jesus is trying to tell them and us what God is like. And then He tells the prodigal son, but I don't think it's the prodigal son. It's really about the father who runs and two sons who are lost in different contexts. So Jesus is in trouble, and here's why He's in trouble. The story starts out, now the tax collectors and sinners were all gathering around to hear Jesus. Tax collectors was a real job, but it was a despicable job. It had no friends except other tax collectors. And people, religious and irreligious, did not like them. They were traitors, and they ripped people off. And sinners, tax collectors and sinners kind of always go together. And these were the kind of people that were attracted to Jesus. But the Pharisees and the teachers of the law, the religious leaders, the pastors, the seminary professors, teachers, they muttered. Muttered is murmuring. Muttered is gossip. Muttered is talking behind their back. They muttered. This man welcomes sinners and eats with them. It's bad enough to welcome a sinner. It's bad enough to hang out with them. But for them to eat in that culture meant you approved of them and their lifestyle. Well, the church leaders were upset, to say the least. This new Jesus, this new teacher, rabbi, Holy One of God, not only welcomes sinners, but He eats with them. So He tells the first parable, the second parable, and then the third one would get them. Starts out like this. There was a man who had two sons. The younger son said to his father, "Father, give me my share of the estate." Right away. You understand what the son is like. Don't change the slide, please. I meant to say that nicer. Please don't change the side, David. Is that better? Okay, thank you. The younger son. He's asking for his share of the estate. If you're a father, how would you feel if you're relatively young and relatively healthy? If one of your children said, "Hey, can I have my money now?" Back then, it was shocking. It was scandalous. You wouldn't do that. It was shameful to ask for your share of the estate. Now, the estate is not in a bank with money. The estate is in hard goods, cows, cattle, buildings. So it would be a hardship, not just on the father, but the family and the whole village, because they shared things. You understand? So not only would the father be shamed and ridiculed, but it would be a hardship on the father, the older brother, and the whole village. But the younger son doesn't care. He's selfish. He's self-centered. Jesus is painting a picture. Jesus is painting a picture of human nature. That means of you and of me. The story continues. So, he divided his property between them. This father does what no other father would do. It's a shock. And the people in the audience hearing this, well, probably the tax collectors and sinners were going, wow, that's new. But the Pharisees were going, right away, Jesus upsets them. Because no village father would grant the request to the son, but he divided his property between them. He divided the property between the older son and the younger son. He divided it. Story continues. Not long after that, see, it took a while to liquidate. And he probably had to sell the farm and the tractor and the cows at a discount price because we need to move this and move this fast. Because the younger son, he wants to get out of there. Not long after that, the younger son got together all he had. He finally liquidated everything. And he set off for the distant country. Stop right there. The distant country. The distant country in that child's mind and in our mind back then and now is this place of seeming freedom. It's without the rules and regulations of the Father. It's without the do this, do that, do your homework, cut your hair, take the dog for a walk. Why can't you be like your older brother? No more of that. It's freedom. Oh, he's heard about the distant country all his life. And you know what he's heard? He's heard, do not go to the distant country. Do not think about that. They're bad people there. And they will take your money and they'll take your soul and you will sin there and you will be judged there and it'll be horrible. So he's never gone to the distant country, but he gets this money. He liquidates his inheritance, causing the village to suffer, his father to suffer, and his older brother to suffer, but he doesn't care. He sets off, he gets out of there, and there he squandered his wealth. He wasted his wealth in wild living. Now here's the thing. He's heard about the distant country all his life. He goes to the distant country, and what does he find? He has a blast. Woo! The distant country is awesome. My dad was wrong. This is fun. Here, beers are on me. Here, I'll pay for everything. I got tons of money. He wasted his wealth. Dad was wrong. The elders were wrong. My Sunday school teachers were wrong. VBS was wrong. This is freedom. This is so much fun. But he squandered his wealth in wild living. Translation? He had a good time. He had a good time. Jesus continues. After he had spent everything, there was a severe famine. See, the good time was good, but it didn't last. It never does. Sin isn't all bad. That's why it draws us in. It looks like fun. It looks like freedom. And there is a momentary buzz for a season, but it always ends. It always comes to an end. And so for this young son, the distant country was awesome for a season. But after he'd spent everything, now when you spend everything you have no more food for money, you have no more food for clothes, you have no more money for shelter. And then just when he thinks it wouldn't get worse, there's a severe famine. We don't know what it's like to be in a severe famine. We do not know what it's like. And from things I've read, it is horrible. I'll save you all the details, but they eat whatever is available. Tree bark, grass, animals. I'll stop there. It's horrible from what I've read. There's a severe famine in the whole country, and he began to be in need. Now he's getting down to the core. He's feeling his need in the distant country. He's feeling his need, and he will not need the Father until he knows his need. And you and I don't need faith, don't need Jesus, don't need God until we know our need. And it's God's grace that shows us our need. The story continues. So he went and hired himself out to a citizen of the country. He's got a plan. I'll work it out. I can lift myself up by my boots. He hired himself out, and the word there in the original is he glued himself to someone, a citizen of the country. A citizen of the country would be someone who had some wealth. He's not a slave. He's a citizen. He has some goods. He has some money. And the picture here is that this younger son just annoyed the heck out of him for days, maybe weeks. Hey, can I have a job? Hey, can I have a job? Hey, can I have a job? Hey, can I? He's kind of always there. Annoying. Finally, the citizen of the country just wants to get rid of this kid, and he gives him a job that he knows that the younger son, who's Jewish, will never take. And he sent him to the fields to feed pigs. If this young Jewish boy who grew up being taught to abhor the pig takes the job, he has no dignity left. It's Jesus painting a picture of his descent into despair. He loses all his money. There's a severe famine. He gets one job opportunity, and that's feeding pigs. If he has any self-esteem left, he will not take the job, but he longed to fill his stomach with the pods that the pigs were eating. He looked at the pig mush and said, oh my gosh, that looks good to me. Jesus is painting a picture of his descent into despair. It's a picture of anyone and any one of us that lives apart from the grace and goodness of God, whether we know it or not. Now watch what happens next. Not the next slide, but this slide. But no one gave him anything. No one gave him anything. What's that? He's begging. He's begging. Yeah, he's feeding he has a job feeding the pigs, but he just longs for that, and he's begging too. He's begging, and no one gave him anything. He's down, 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 doobie-doo, down, down. Story continues. When he came to his senses, hardship can do that. When you know your need, when you're down, 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 God's grace, God's kindness can help us come to our senses. Oh my gosh, maybe my father was right about the distant country. Actually, I think he was. He said, how many of my father's hired servants have food to spare? He's remembering the father. He's remembering the goodness of his dad. He's remembering his father's love and grace. And even the servants who live out back, they have food to spare. They have food in their refrigerator and their freezer. And here I am starving to death. Boy, did I make a bad choice. Boy, was that stupid. Next slide. I will set out and go back to my father. Okay, that is no easy thing. Because you know who he's going to have to face going back to his father? His brother and the village and the father. See, what he thinks is going to happen if he goes back, there'll be a gauntlet of people. The tower guard will see him, and he'll say, hey, the younger son's coming back, and people would gather. And he'd have to walk through a crowd, and they will not be a gracious crowd. They will spit on him. They will mock him. They might punch him because he has caused great shame to the father, and he's caused hardship on that family and the whole village. But he's coming back. Can you imagine the taunts? Hey, how was your time in the distant country? Hey, been on a diet? Look a little thin there. Did you have fun? You don't look like you did. But the fear in his belly is overridden by the hunger in his stomach. So he says, you know what? I'll go back to my father. Oh, wait. I have another idea. I'll give him a speech. I'll give him a 3-point speech. He's a preacher in training. 3 points. That was humor. Point number 1, Father, I've sinned against you and heaven and heaven. He knows the truth. He's sinned. Number 2, I'm no longer worthy to be called your son. He knows the consequences. I'm no longer worthy. And then he says, make me like one of your hired servants. So listen to this. His highest hope is what? Not to be restored. His highest hope is his dad won't beat him, the village won't kill him, which is a real possibility in a Middle Eastern village back then and today. His highest hope is his father will, yeah, okay, you can work it off. You can go live out back and be a slave. Jesus is painting a picture. So he got up and went back to his father. Next slide. Now here comes the power of the story, even more powerful than up to this point. But while he was still a long way off, his father saw him. Stop. While he was still a long way off, the father saw him. What had the father been doing? What had the father been doing all these months, all these years? Waiting and watching, waiting and watching. Before the tower guards, before anyone in the fields, the father was waiting and watching. The father let the son go, even though it broke the heart of the father. That's love. The father lets us go to the distant country. He'll let us go to the distant country tonight or tomorrow. That's love. Love says, I will do anything and everything. I'll pursue you. I'll follow you. I'll break down. I'll climb up walls. I'll break down everything to pursue you. But I will not force you to love me. I will not force you to believe in me. It's your choice. And when we go to the distant country, and when our kids go to the distant country, isn't it good to know that when our kids, our grandkids, our spouse, when we're in the distant country, the father waits and watches? Isn't that good to know? The father waits and watches, yearning for that day when maybe the daughter, the son will come home. While he was still a long way off, it just always gets me. His father saw him, and what? He was filled with compassion. It's a word that means he felt it in his guts. He felt it to the core of his being. Many of you know my mother recently died, and one of the things I tell Paulina and myself, it hurts. It just hurts. And that's part of what compassion is. It's a pain inside of you. And he felt compassion. But see what the religious leaders hearing this story is, the father felt compassion? No, the father should be angry. We need justice here. Not compassion, not mercy. The story continues. And so the father ran. He what? He ran. Now it's important to understand what this word is. Ran, it does not mean walk fast. It does not mean trot. The word ran is used by the Apostle Paul talking about the Olympic Games. In other words, the father ran as fast as he could. Okay. Us men who are over 60. When was the last time you ran? And I mean ran as fast as you could. If I'm not going to pick anyone out, although I'm looking at someone right now, but I will not. If we were to all be dismissed, and we're going a little longer today, don't worry. If you all were to be dismissed, and all the men over 60 would line up and have a sprint race for 50 yards, what would that look like? Right? For the men running, it would be a little embarrassing, would it not? It would. A village father, the head of the village father, he hasn't run anywhere for anyone for 30, 40 years. It would be undignified for a village father to run. I was in Central African Republic over 20 years ago and preached this sermon through 2 interpreters. That was a long sermon, by the way. And the village father was sitting in a chair like this. And I got to this point, and the village was a small village, about 30, 40 people. We're all sitting around him. And when I got to this, I asked, when was the last time you ran? He said, I don't run. I don't run. He said, I can't run anymore, But it's undignified. He had a robe on, and he walked like this. He walked. But in Jesus' story, God the Father sees the lost son from far off. He's the first one. And what's he do? He sprints as fast as he can. But what do they wear? They wear robes. You can't run effectively in a robe. So the father lifts down and lifts the hem and runs like a little schoolgirl, and it would be embarrassing. I mean, very embarrassing. It would be very embarrassing. He would lift the hem of his garment, and he would run. He would run like a little schoolgirl, and he would find the son, and he would hug him. He would hug him, and he would hug him, and he'd kiss him. He'd kiss him. Okay, don't miss this. Is this embarrassing? See, if you brought a guest today, you're turning right now going, it's not usually this bad. He's usually pretty sane. But don't miss this. When the father lifts the hem of his garment, and when he sprints as fast as he can, the village is not laughing. They are shocked. They are angry. The father has taken the shame and the justice and the anger due him, and he puts it on himself. There's the cross. The father humbles himself, sacrificing his reputation for the son, for you and for me. And he puts it upon himself. He threw his arms around him and he kissed him. And that's not one of these little polite European, right? It's one of those slobbering deals, right? Let's see what else happens. And the son said to him, "Oh, my speech, my speech." And maybe during that long hug and that kissing, the son maybe for the first time realizes, I've caused great pain to my father. For the first time, he realizes maybe what his actions have caused to his beloved father. Maybe I've broken my father's heart. I haven't just broken his bank account. Maybe I've broken his heart. And then in the midst of all that, he remembers his speech. He remembers his speech. He says, "Dad, I've sinned against heaven and against you. I'm no longer worthy to be called your son." But what? He only gets part 1 and part 2 of his speech. And the father interrupts the son's speech with a speech of his own. He says this, but the father said to his servants, "Quick, bring the best robe and put it on him." You see, the father interrupts the son's speech. Why? Probably or maybe because the son thinks he's going to work off the debt. How can he work off the debt? He can't do it. Do you see what Jesus is doing? Jesus is more than a great teacher, but he's an awesome teacher. He's painting a picture of the debt that we go to owe a gracious God. And when we try and be good and when we try and behave, we can't be good enough. We just can't be good enough. So the father interrupts the speech with a speech of his own. The son wants to say, "Hey, I'll be a servant and I'll work it off." See, he thinks the relationship is about master-servant. He thinks the relationship is about being good and following the rules and regulations. And I've broken the rules and the regulations, so, I have to be better. I have to work it off. That's religion. That's religion. That's the way of the scribes and the Pharisees. That's the way of the religions of this world, generally speaking. It's be good, be better, and maybe God will love you. But no, Jesus is painting a picture of a different kind of God, a different kind of Father. What is God like? He's a God who picks up the hem of his garment and runs toward us. And when we try to say, "Hey, we'll be better, we'll be better," no, he wants us to be good, but it's all because of grace, not be good and then maybe I'll give you some grace. He interrupts the son's speech. "Bring the best robe and put it on him." Who has the best robe in the house? The father. Watch this. The Father's going to take the riches of his robe and clothe the rags of the Son. Do you see that? Sons and daughters get to wear the riches and put them over our rags. Put a ring on his finger. The ring is a ring of authority. The ring is a ring, the signet ring probably, that seals important business documents. Hey, how's the son done in Business 101 lately? He blew half of the family's money. But not only does he get restored to relationship, but he gets to get his own, he gets a raise. He says, wait a minute, I'm going to be in charge of the family business? And put sandals on his feet. And bring the fattened calf and kill it. Let's have a feast and celebrate. The fattened calf is the primo meat, choice beef, prime beef, and that's just been getting fatter and fatter and just waiting for a celebration. Next slide. For this son of mine was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found. So they began to celebrate. But not everybody's happy. You know who isn't happy? Next slide. Meanwhile, the older son is in the field. The older son is in the field. I'm the oldest son. I know a little bit about being oldest born. We're dutiful. He didn't go to the distant country. The oldest son went to the field. What's he doing? Working. He's being good. You know who the older son represents? Church people, pastors, religious people, Pharisees, Sadducees. We're pretty dutiful. We've maybe gone to the distant country a time or two or three or four, but we're not there now. We're in church. We follow the rules, give or take. He was out in the field working, and when he came near the house, he heard music and dancing. Next slide. So he called one of the servants and asked him, what's going on? And the servant says, your brother has come, and your father has killed the fattened calf because he has him back safe and sound. Who owns the fattened calf? Yeah, that didn't get sold. So the son, the oldest son, that's everything that's left over is his inheritance. Because he's brought him back safe and sound. Now, in a normal family situation, or maybe I shouldn't say normal family situation, in a healthy family situation, the older son will be, he's back? That's great. Watch how he responds. The older son became angry. He was ticked off. He was upset. He was angry. And he refused to go in. The oldest son in that culture today and during this time, the oldest son is to be the host of a party. The oldest son is to be at the party serving everybody and especially serving the guest of honor, which would be who? You can imagine, I mean, I can relate to that, right? This is not fair. This is not right. My younger brother, he deserves justice. And you're giving him mercy and kindness? This isn't right. You see what Jesus is doing? This is exactly what the religious leaders and Pharisees think. It's not fair. Grace is not fair. I want justice. I want holiness upon him. And now the older brother is angry and he refuses to go in. Watch this. In refusing to go in, he's no better than his younger brother. For he shames the father too. He shames the father because the guests, by having the older brother outside, and by this is all going on in public. This is not some private little thing. These villagers followed everybody around and heard stuff. He shamed the father too by refusing to go in. The father is embarrassed and shamed. And the guests are going, boy, this dad does not have it any kind of authority in this family. Watch what Jesus' story does. So the father went out. For the second time that day, the father leaves the house and approaches a runaway son. See, a lot of times we think that the one who stayed home, that the one who goes to church, it's all good. But Jesus looks at the heart. You can be in the house, but not know the God of the house. You can be in the house, but not know the father of the house. So the father went out and pleaded with him. Watch the reaction of the son. But the son answered his father, look. How's that a good way to start a conversation? right? You're his son, right? Yeah. So you get into a little fight, okay? And sorry to do this to you, but it's okay. And he says, your dad says, well, what do you think about that? Tell me what you feel. And your first word is, you say, look. Not a real respectful word, is it? Right? Look! That's how it starts. Remember how the younger son started out? Father, Father, I've sinned against you. The older son, look, all these years I've been slaving for you, and you never disobeyed your orders. Here's what's so sad. He's been home this whole time, but he doesn't know the Father. He doesn't even know him. A person could go to church all their life, but not know the goodness and greatness and love of God, right? It's not bad to come to church and go to Bible studies, but to not know the God of the house is so tragic. And that's what Jesus is painting here. All these years I've been slaving for you. See, his relationship with God was a master-servant. It was do this, do this, do this, do this, and when I do all this, then you'll like me. It's not father-son. It's not relational at all. It's master-servant. And a lot of people think that, being a part of a church, you got to do this and be good and be good and be good, and then maybe God will like you. God wants us to be good, but it comes out of grace. It comes out of forgiveness. It comes out of the mercy that we've received. We extend mercy. Yet you never gave me a young goat. I mean, I really would have liked the calf, but even a goat, so I could celebrate with my friends. But when this son of yours, that was for effect, I didn't really spit. But when this son of yours has squandered your property with prostitutes, when people are trying to slam us, they always exaggerate how bad we are. I mean, if you just tell the truth, it's bad enough. But I think what this older son is, and he was with prostitutes. I know it. It's that bad, Dad. He's that bad. He's unholy. When he comes home, you kill the fattened calf, my fattened calf, for him. Watch what the father responds. My son. My son. It means my precious son. My boy. Compassion again. My son, my beloved son, my dear son. Look, was what the father said. And the father said, my son, my son. You're always with me, and everything I have is yours. I'm so sad you didn't know this. I'm so sad you've lived with me all these years, and you've benefited from it over and over again. I've poured it out to you. It's so sad that you don't know that everything I have is yours. But we had to celebrate and be glad because this brother of yours, remember what the older son said? This son of yours, and the father says, no, this brother of yours was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found. Brothers and sisters, if you're in the distant country, it's safe to come home. It's safe to come home. Now, tomorrow, a week from now, because the Father will be waiting and watching. And I hope the church will also be waiting and watching, although we tend to be really judgmental. We older brothers and sisters, we church members, we leaders, we tend to be pretty judgmental about people who have gone to the distant country. While they were with prostitutes, I'm pretty sure. They're really bad. If you're in the distant country, it's safe to come home. It's safe to come home. And if you've never been or haven't been to the distant country in a long time, experience the grace and mercy and love of God. May we extend mercy and grace and kindness to people who are in the distant country and when they come back from the distant country. Because God's grace, God's love, God's mercy is amazing. Gracious and loving God, we thank you that you pursue us with this relentless, with this reckless kind of love. And we praise you and we thank you.